morning and welcome to a Homespun house. My name is Molly and I am so happy to be back. It is snowing again. It is snowing again as I film this episode and I can literally see right out the window. I'm sitting in my living room and we have 8 sky windows just going up just right up above me, and I can see all of the beautiful snow. I have a sweet little chihuahua at my feet, our little Polly, who will be a year old in May. I have been working on so many knits. So the first thing that I'm going to show you is a finished object, and that is my September sweater. All that I had left to do is this neckband, which I just find absolutely stunning. I love the idea of this neckband. It is a folded over neckband, and I just think it's absolutely beautiful. So I think that this is something that I could see knitting on all future garments. It just adds a really nice touch. There's zero problem getting my head into here, and it still is quite a crew neck style, which is what I prefer. I also find that very funny because as a teen, I only wore V-neck shirts and I did not understand the whole crew neck thing. I would have never thought that I would be wearing a crew neck shirt in my life. Never. So this is the, I hope, September sweater. I knit this in a size medium. And as I mentioned on last episode, I highly changed the way that the cuffs are knit. I think they're half the amount of stitches as what they're supposed to be, or as what's written in the pattern. So this creates an insane balloon sleeve, which I absolutely love. And like I mentioned, they're perfect because I do not like my sleeves falling into my hands at all when I'm working, especially because I'm constantly skeinin yarn, labeling yarn, and a sleeve can get caught in a skein. Believe me, I've had it happen before and it's not funny. It is just, it's irritating. I keep a t-shirt in the studio all the time because when I dye yarn, I get very warm and I always need something to change into. So I have sleeves that are falling into my knitting or into my skein winding rather. That t-shirt is getting put on. So my daughter, Elodie, who is 9 years old, has been loving this sweater. I also mentioned in the last episode that this is just very, very frumpy looking, at least when I tried it on earlier when I was knitting it. I'm still very much so having that problem. I think blocking it would really, really help it because it's not a stiff garment. Like, it's very, very movable. However, when I do wear it, it has a very balloon effect. It does not hug my body at all, which is not the intention that I had when I knitted it. I did want it to be oversized, which is why I knit a size larger than what I normally would wear. And when I do wear it though, it just, the sleeves fit perfectly, the neck fits perfectly. Those two things fit exactly as I hoped that they would. However, the body just, it balloons out. So it just like, I put it on and it puffs away from my body and there's like no wiggle room. Like, it doesn't move, it doesn't hang down. It has a very, very strange fit to it. And I think that's because it needs to be blocked. And I think that all of the fibers need to be a bit relaxed. But as I said, my daughter is really, really enjoying wearing it. It fits her, I would say, more in a tunic style. It is extremely oversized on her. But the one thing that works perfectly are these cuffs. They really make it again so that there is no way that the sleeve can fall into her arm. These hug her wrists really lovely and prevent that. So she's been enjoying wearing it almost every single day since I knit it. She just said that it feels like she's getting a big hug from her and she finds it very comforting and just super warm. So she's been enjoying cuddling up in this. And I've loved that. I've loved seeing her in this because one, it is like a wool that so many people would find just scratchy beyond anything, which I find really interesting because I have some shawls that are knit in a mohair silk and she finds those on her neck very scratchy. So this pattern calls for 3 strands of mohair silk held triple, and I didn't want to do that. I did not want to do that when I knit this sweater. So I found a base that was a worsted weight base, and I don't remember exactly what's all in it, but I'm quite sure that there's merino, alpaca, silk, mohair, and I think that's it. And it could even be wool instead of merino. So that's what she's been doing most days, just cozying up with this, and it's beautiful. I just think the construction of this is so stunning. I knit this out of our rose gold colorway. I've really in the last couple of years, I would say, been into neutrals, but for me a neutral is pretty much any shade of pink and then just creamy shades. So I've really enjoyed knitting this. I think that I need to block it, and I think that that's what I'm going to do to see if it makes it more wearable for me, because as it is, it's a piece that I won't wear. I will not wear it at all. And I love that my daughter wears it, but she doesn't wear it every single day. And on the days that she doesn't, I would really like to be able to wear it. And I don't think that she will mind if it stretches to a knee length dress rather than that thigh length tunic. So I think the next time that I head over to the studio tomorrow, I'm going to soak this and block it a little bit. Probably not too aggressively. I don't want it to be extremely oversized, but I definitely would like to block the length a little bit and just, as I said, relax those fibers quite a bit. So I recommend this pattern. I, however, did not knit it with the yarn recommended, those 3 strands of silk mohair, but I love it. I think that this detail of the neck, as I mentioned, is so genius. This is completely knit in brioche, so if you are afraid of brioche, this is probably a perfect project to try. If you're having a hard time wrapping your mind around how to do those stitches, there are so many great tutorials. I think I learned via a Stephen West tutorial when I was knitting his Marled Magic mystery knit along shawl, and that really helped. So I enjoy knitting brioche a lot, hence why I knit an entire sweater in brioche. The shawl that I'm wearing is brioche. This is the Homespun House mystery advent knit along that I designed. The pattern is confusing in the way that you find it on Ravelry. So I refer to this as the hibernation shawl, the hibernation wrap, which if you search that on Ravelry, unfortunately you won't be able to find it. This is still called the 2020 Advent Mystery Knit Along. So I knit this out of our yarn. If you head over to the shop, there will be a pre-order for these right now. All of this yarn is one of a kind yarn. It's not something that I'm going to offer as single skeins in the shop. And yeah, so I hope that those of you who are interested in knitting the hibernation shawl are able to do that. The other shawl that I'm working on is also an Advent shawl that I designed for 2019. This also doesn't have pictures of the shawl on it. This also does not have a name other than 2019 Mystery Advent Knit Along. I need to get pictures of it. I've knit this shawl a couple of times and I am just knitting it again. I really enjoyed knitting it. So I'm in the middle of a row, which is not the best, but I've done quite a bit of knitting on it. Let me just share with you. I have knit from here up to here since we last spoke, and I have almost 300 stitches on my needles right now. This pattern calls for 200 grams of yarn. I, however, am using more than that because the pattern calls for a 4mm needle, and I decided I wanted a larger, squishier shawl. So I'm using a 4.5mm needle. I'm still using fingering weight yarn. I'm using mohair. The pattern calls for either fingering or mohair, and there are different stitch counts for both. So I'm knitting the largest size with larger needles, and I'm knitting this on our non-superwash fresh sheets colorway. And then I've used different mohair colors for the shawl. So for this first third, I used fresh sheets for the mohair. And then for this next section, I used our aloe colorway in mohair. And then for this final section, I used our Scandinavia colorway. And I'm really enjoying it. Again, it's another quite mindless knit, and it's just super relaxing. Can you guys remember those socks that I was knitting out of our Syrah colorway? Which Syrah it's a kind of wine. It's Robert and my favorite red wine. I have been dyeing a lot of new colorways for the shop recently. When we left America, I decided that I wanted to start a completely new palette for a homespun house. So I set aside all of the colorways that I had been dyeing for years and years and decided that I wanted to start completely fresh and completely new. So as I mentioned, I've been dyeing a lot of new colorways. And one of those new colorways is called Syrah. Robert chose this color for his socks, and the cuff is knit in our lingonberry colorway. Lingonberry is not a tonal that's available in the shop. However, so many of you have loved it and received it so well that I probably will be adding it to the shop this week. So I'm really happy that you guys love it. I think a sweater or a cardigan in lingonberry would be so stunning. Okay, so Syrah, I ended up naming it that because, yeah, Robert chose the yarn, and I thought, you know what, this needs to be something like about both of us, and when we do have a cup of wine, we always have a glass of Syrah. At least lately this winter, that's kind of been a theme for us, is trying all of the different Syrahs from all of the different countries and regions, and we've really been enjoying that. Robert's mom knew that we enjoyed Syrah, and she even purchased us a really nice bottle from, I think it was either from Italy or from France, but it was really lovely. I don't remember which region, unfortunately, but so anyway, these are the socks that I knit for Robert, and Robert loves his legs of his socks very long. And so I thought, you know what? I am going to try and knit a super long sock. So I knit these out of 2.5mm needles. I cast on 64 stitches. I did a 1x1 cuff. And you guys, look at how massive these socks are. So I said that I got on a sock kick. I knit these socks in, I think, 3 days. Look at how massive these are, and then wrap your head around that. This is the leg. This is my head for reference, okay? This is the leg of the sock. These look like stockings. So my husband is 6 foot, is he 6'4.5" or 6'6.5"? One of the two. And he has obviously very big feet. This is his foot. I'm not stretching them. This is my head. And this is the sock. I sent my sister, I think a video of them, and she said, I thought they were big, and then when you put them up to your face, I was like, yeah, those are really big. So I knit these on Gold Stellina yarn, which he has never ever asked for socks on Gold Stellina. And I told him, I was like, You know, my friend Danny from Little Bobbins Knits, she's knit her husband's socks on gold stellina yarn, and they look so awesome. And Robert really likes to play with a lot of different color. So I thought it's very likely that he will say yes to knitting a pair of socks and to wearing socks on gold stellina. And he was like, you know what? That actually sounds really, really cool. So the girls went to Robert's parents' house for a weekend, 3 days, and Robert and I just lounged out, relaxed, played games, and in every moment that I could, I knit on these socks. So one day, I think I spent 15 hours knitting on these socks. I was awake before Robert, maybe 3-4 hours. So I got 3-4 straight hours of knitting socks, and I found out that one sock for Robert takes 15 hours. So these are 30 hours of knitting socks. I don't know, that just blows my mind. I did not realize that a pair of socks for Robert took me for 30 hours. That just seems so crazy. But I knit one sock in one day, like I said. And that felt so amazing. I felt so accomplished after knitting that massive sock in one day. Okay? So last time we spoke, I also said that I knit the bobble socks. I knit those bobble socks out of our candlelight colorway, which was in the Hygge box for December, I think. Was it December or was it November? I think it was a December box. All of our Hygge boxes right now, they might be sold out. I'm not sure, but there might be one left in the shop. Yeah, those are super fun. I've decided that I'm going to have one more Hygge box for February, and then that is it until next September. So if you're wanting to get a Hygge box, February's will be the last one. So anyway, yes, I knit the Crunkled Socks by Kay Jones. Those were absolutely beautiful, and I said, I don't think I can knit textured socks anymore. And then I knit those socks out of the Syrah colorway, thoroughly enjoyed knitting them, threw myself into knitting them, and then I knit 2 pattern socks. So I decided that I wanted to design more things myself. I've really enjoyed designing. And I have a new colorway that came out that called You Showed Me Color. It is a line in the song Illicit Affairs by Taylor Swift, off of her Folklore album. Also, how cool is it that in the last year she's come out with 2 albums and they're great. And Bon Iver is featured on both of them. They've been lovely. So You Showed Me Color, which is a line that I love. It goes, you showed me colors you know I can't see from anyone else. And I just think that line is so sweet, but so heartbreaking in the context of the song. And I love it because Robert showed me colors that I've never been able to see before I met him. And I think and hope that a lot of people can relate to having someone in their life that has really opened their eyes to something beautiful. Yeah, so that's this colorway. And it is filled with color. So fun, so pretty. And then I did something extra special in these socks. So this is the pattern. I'll have it out this week. Super fun. Has a really nice ribbed texture. This color here in the center is You Showed Me Color, which reminds me of Robert. And then this color is Oatmeal, which reminds me of my sister, because when she lived with us when we were living in Wisconsin, she ate oatmeal almost every single evening. And it just made me think of her. And then this blue is Scandinavia, which makes me think of my mom because it's kind of like a purple lilac blue. And so here I have a little hug by my sister, Robert, and my mom. So here's this sock, and I've cast on the second sock. I'm using 2.5 millimeter needles, And this sock pattern will have 4 different sizes to it, which is kind of what I try to do when I put out a sock pattern. Not that I have a ton of sock patterns out, but I think I have 2 other adult sock patterns out, and I believe they both have 4 sizes. I'm not exactly sure on that, but I think they both have 4 sizes. So like an extra small, a small, a medium, and a large. Really enjoying knitting it. I have one of my favorite progress keepers ever from Simply Serving. And this is her little Dutch oven with a soup inside of it. And then you have your little towel here or a little hot pad. And then it has this really, really sweet little face on it. I use this all the time in the fall and the winter since I have received it, and I adore it so much. So I'm enjoying knitting on these quite a bit. And they're textured. They're textured. I need to think. Not really. I mean, they're still quite relaxing. I wanted those to be something that were still relaxing as I knit them. So I have 2 more things on my needles. And this is another design, which is also going to be available in 4 different sizes. I am really enjoying knitting these so much that I would like to knit a couple different versions of this sock, just because playing with color has been so much fun. I haven't named these yet, but I have enjoyed knitting them so much. Here we have Barbie. And then all of these little speckling in here is done with whale belly. And then these little kind of little peaks are done with comfort. And then I've gone ahead and used Barbie in here again for that pop. And the main sock is done with barley. So we have Barbie, whale belly, comfort, and barley for the main sock. So I've been really enjoying this. This is the first sock. And I have them in my little basket. Here you can see all of the colors a little bit better. We have comfort, whale belly, Barbie. I've cast on the next cuff. And then here I have barley. So that has been a lot of fun. I knit this cuff probably in an evening. I first designed the chart and had a lot of fun with that. I've written out the entire pattern already, so all I have to do is knit. And I'm knitting these on 9-inch circulars. So when I knit my socks, if I'm knitting colorwork socks, I absolutely use 9-inch circulars. They make it so that your floats are effortless. They're beautiful. I don't have trouble at all getting my foot inside of this sock. Not at all. I think I would if I was using double points. I always have a bit of a problem getting my tension even and nice when I'm knitting on double points doing color work, just in between the needles. That's kind of the place where I have a bit of a problem. And if you have any problem in your color work knitting, especially for socks, because you always have that gusset that you have to get your heel through, it can make it really difficult, and it can make for a lot of work in a sock that you can't get your foot through. So I knit it on a 9-inch circular needle. And what I do when I knit color work is I always go up 1/2 millimeter. So when I knit these socks, I used a 2 millimeter needle for the cuff. Stitch counts are still all the same. 2 millimeter needle for the cuff, and then I went up to a 2.5 millimeter needle for my leg. And then I go back to my normal needle size for the foot. That's not something that you have to do. However, if you do have issues with color work, I definitely recommend going up 1/2 a needle size in millimeter. Something really exciting is coming to the shop at a Homespun house, and that is Haya sharp needles. They're my absolute favorite. They're pretty much all that I knit with if I have the correct needle size here at home. I just love them. I love the way they feel. I love the way they knit. And I have been wanting to stock needles in my shop for a very, very long time. I've been talking about it for a while, and I'm making the leap this week. I'm making the order, and I would love to know My biggest question is, do you like fixed needles or do you like interchangeable needles? I personally prefer interchangeable needles. They're my absolute favorite. I love to just have a couple cables, have a little set of tips that I can use as I please. I don't have fixed needles all over the place. I just think they're a lot easier to organize. And I don't know, it's just what I prefer. Obviously, if I'm knitting a 9-inch circular, I prefer a fixed. I don't even think there is a 9-inch circular available on interchangeables, but I really, really love the Haya Sharps, and I plan on getting, I'm quite certain that I'm going to be getting a couple of interchangeable sets in the shop. I plan on getting couple of double points, more so in sock sizes, couple of sock sets for the shop, and then all of the different ranges of interchangeable needles with all of the different cables. And I am very, very excited about that. Very excited. So I've been enjoying all of my knitting so much. I've been enjoying textured socks, which just blows my mind. It's been so much fun to dive into designing, and I've just been having such a great week knitting. And the snow is getting heavier outside. I no longer can see outside of my sky windows because they're packed in snow, which is beautiful. Oh, you guys, I almost forgot to share with you a knit. Here I'm about to close in on this episode, and I have one more knit on my needles. So I am knitting the balloon jacket by Petite Knits. And I have a couple of things that I'm not so sure about with this knit. So I am knitting this out of our antique colorway. I'm using our non-superwash DK. That's antique. Then I'm using our alpaca lace weight. I think a lot of people call this Surrey alpaca. I can't remember exactly what the blend is, but it's, I believe, alpaca and silk. And this is also our antique colorway. So I have just cast on the band. I'm knitting the medium as well, again in this. It actually calls for a worsted weight yarn, but our non-superwash DK is quite plump, so I'm hoping that that will work just fine, and it looks like it is. And this calls for, I believe, a 6mm needle, and then you knit the body on a 6.5mm needle. Jacket is knit in garter stitch, and I am not sure if I want to do that. I don't know how much it would change the jacket if I knit it in a stockinette stitch. I know it would drastically change it, but I don't know how it would change the fit of the jacket. That's kind of what I'm worried about. I think I would like to knit it in stockinette stitch. So I finished my ribbing, and I am to the point where I would start knitting the garter. So I think I'm going to think about it for another day. This just feels so heavenly. Later this week, you're going to see all of our tonals available on this alpaca lace weight base. We still will have our mohair in the shop, don't worry. But I really want to offer this base because it's so squishy and soft, and I think that it's great for different projects, and I think that you guys will really, really enjoy it, especially if you do find the mohair silk to be a bit itchy. I don't think that you'll find the alpaca lace weight itchy at all. It's very, very warm and it's super scrumptious. I actually knit this shawl in our alpaca lace weight. Okay, so that is definitely the last and final thing. I've been craving a cardigan and something just warm and oversized and cozy that I can throw on, but I still need to think about that a bit. And I don't think it's going to be that oversized. So I'm hoping that I chose the right size. I'm going to sit back now and really enjoy my cup of coffee. I think I'm going to have to actually dump this and make an entirely new cup because this is cold by now, which is okay. That's just what happens, right? So I'm going to dump this, make a new cup of coffee, make something for breakfast, probably some potatoes on the stove, and sit and do a bit of knitting. Robert and the girls will come to the table now and work on their Lego. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to being able to hear the chatter and laughter of the children, and we'll play some fun music and just have a relaxing day. I wish all of you the same, and I hope to see you soon. Bye.